You know what? I've got to say, I'm actually pretty happy of where it is going right now with the game project that I'm currently working on right now. I actually do feel pretty happy. Sorry, I didn't even recognize that you guys decided to pop up here. For people who don't know who I am, my name is Planetary. I'm a small-time game developer, a small-time solo developer who have actually been working on different projects beforehand, and also decided to drop one particular project in mind because I didn't feel the passion or love. And most of you guys know what particular project I'm talking about. You guys have seen it on my channel, both the game development channel here, and also yet on the gameplay channel as well. And that was, of course, Bob the Blob. I'm sorry that I have actually left you guys hanging for a while. I'm sorry that I have went underneath the radar and haven't been posting up updates about Bob the Blob, but with good reasons behind it. I didn't feel any passion or love for creating or finishing off Bob the Blob because I got stuck at the end. I actually was struggling to actually find ways to make the game fun and interesting. Plus, I actually dug myself a very huge hole when it came down to Bob the Blob. I got stuck so quickly when it came down to the buttons and everything else. I didn't know where to finish. So I didn't have a finishing point. I didn't have any scrimmage. I didn't have a end point when it comes down to Bob the Blob, and I do feel sorry for that. I do feel sorry for Bob the Blob, and throughout the 5 years I have been working on him, I do kind of regret having to drop him and actually move on, because working on him for a good 5 years and trying 5 separate game engines to actually trying to figure out which game engine is best suited for the game and not for myself, it does become a bit of a problem. Working with different game engines like GDevelop, Godot, Unity, Game Maker Engine, and Construct 3 where it stopped, I do actually kind of regret that decision of not continuing on and actually leaving him behind, because I don't feel the love or the passion of continuing on with him. So after going underneath the radar for quite some time and looking at the thumbnail of restart, that was the whole idea for myself, is giving myself a proper restart and actually a proper idea of what I want to do. So in this particular video, this is what the whole thing is all about, is restarting. So let's start from the beginning of why I decided to restart, shall we? So this took place around at the latest stage of June, probably the last week of June. This is when I decided to actually look at myself and decide to say, well, I need to get back into game development. I actually do love game development and I want to give it a proper go, because there's so much fun when it comes down to game development, and so much fun when it comes down to making your own game. But the only problem was that I decided to actually put myself into gear was finding the game engine that it is best suited for me. And looking back at it, I should have stuck to the game engine that got me started, which was none other than Game Maker Engine. Game Maker Engine has actually been a very good game engine for me. It might not be best suited for everyone, but it is the best game engine for me. It helps me understand how to do things proper and how to actually allocate events, both step, create, draw, and everything else. But even unknown, most people will say, why didn't you stick with Godot? Godot is good, yes, but it does get overwhelming at some point, especially when you're trying to do states. Though yes, you have ways of actually having allocating nodes to it, but that's not how I roll. It feels a little bit too much for me. So sorry to all the Godot users, I'd rather stick with using Game Maker Engine. But continuing on, after knowing that there are small tutorials that Game Maker has to offer, it actually helps me out a little bit with relearning how to use, relearning coding from learning how to make Astro Blaster, and then also yet learning how to use controller support, which that was one of the most important key features that I struggled, was trying to find out how to get a controller support added to the game. Learning how to do that actually helped me out a lot, and actually made it a lot easier for me to actually allocate my controller to Game Maker, and also yet for the game as well. And after learning that, I decided to learn how to do a small platformer that actually will make things a lot easier. And after learning how to do a small platformer, thanks to Game Maker Engine tutorials, I decided to tinker a bit. And actually learn the engine and learn the coding a little bit more to understand how to make a good platformer, aside from just destroying the character and then restarting the room. No, I decided to keep on learning and kept on pushing. And that was a great thing. But before I decided to even get into making a new project, which I'll get to later, another thing that I need to restart was pixel art. Pixel art was one of the most key factors that I need to learn and restart myself, because I was bad at pixel art. I was actually really, really bad. Though yes, I do make some things simple, but there were some things I actually had to learn proper, and that's when I decided to learn how to do pixel art, but also yet learning how to use certain color palettes to restrict myself and actually understand how to make characters within those restrictions. Which those restrictions are, because I love retro games, I decided to restrict myself to a 16 by 16 for the characters, or like 16 by 16 or lower for the characters, and also yet color palettes that are helpful for me and easy to understand. So off I go to Aseprite, and off I go looking at low spec to actually look for a certain color palette that helps me out and helps me understand how to make certain characters. And lo and behold, I found a color palette which is 16 Vital, and it was pretty interesting. So I decided to actually make a character. I made a simple character. This particular character right here. This lovely little robot right there, with a dark bluish color as the body, and the slightly silver grayish mid-tone to actually differentiate of what is in front, which one is the front leg and which one is the back leg, and also which one is the front arm and which one is the back arm, which was actually pretty awesome. And then I decided to add some highlights to make the character more unique, going through its walk animations, its jump and its fall. And then I realized there is something that I can actually do with this. Due to the fact that I was looking at the green highlights, I decided to say, why not we make a visual feedback based on the player and also yet the health bar. So I decided to copy and paste all of the animations that I did and decided to pull them down to down 16 by 16 bit each time, and decided to give them different colors for different highlights. So an easy way to indicate to the player to understand that you need to be a little bit more careful, with green being healthy, yellow being hurt, and red being damaged. And the same thing goes with the health bar. Red being damaged, yellow being hurt, and green being healthy. A great way to actually indicate to you players to understand that you might need to be a little bit more careful. And that was the whole idea. After getting all the assets done for the character and also for the lasers as well, I decided to crack on. And this was at the first week of July, the 3rd of July. I decided to start on the basics. That means having the basic movements like the left, right, and the jump. And I decided to take the coding from the small tutorial that I've learned for making a small platformer and actually use that as a great staple to actually continue on. But alongside with that, I decided to learn how to use enums in a proper manner, using enums to actually indicate the engine that whenever the player hits a certain point of time with health points, they have to switch a whole different animation to like a whole set of animation to let the player know that they're in that kind of state. So I did all that, but I decided to use a debug version where I had to press the Z, X, and C to help you to make sure that it works, to make sure each animation sets are working. So that means it's hurt function, it's hurt case, it's damage case, and also yet it's healthy case. So after learning that it all worked, this is when I got to the nitty-gritty part. And that's when it came down to the health. The health was actually one of the most difficult part to actually get into. And this happened on the 5th of July. And it was one of the hardest ones to deal with, but knowing the fact that I have actually done it somewhere before, which was through time, a previous project that I decided to leave behind. I decided to go back to some of my old projects that I didn't get finished and actually use that from there. And I'm actually quite happy that I've actually learned that along the way. And it helped me out to this day as well. But when I got the health bar all sorted, the health bar was working very well. It was actually going through a simple and easy way, like it was a simple rectangle. It was going through each point every single time and changing colors as well. But then I realized I need to implicate my health points that I've actually made into that. And that's when it became a challenging factor. And that's when I decided to actually pay attention and actually learn a little bit more. And this is when I decided to add this particular coding right here, where it allows me to actually draw the health bars that you see on the screen and actually allow them in a for loop, which means it has to draw each and every single health bar as it is. And I had each and every if statement in that for loop. For the first one, if the health points is below 10 or equal to 10, it needs to switch to hurt. If it reaches down below 5 or is equal to 5, it needs to switch to red. Anything else, it has to go to green. And the same thing goes with the player. I have to carry that over to make sure that the player switches states of how much health point it has. And after realizing that, it became so much fun. It became so understandable. It became so much interesting, and I felt the love and passion of it. And it was so much fun to actually get back into game development, and it was that fun as well. But when it came down to updating the collision of the X and the Y, that's when I decided to look at some YouTube tutorials, especially one particular YouTuber that I actually know, and he is very helpful when it comes down to platforming. I can't remember his name. I can't remember his name. I might have to do a quick search. Give me a sec. Yeah, now I remember who he is. Now I remember. Pretson Brom, the person who actually made Starcross or Star Roads, and also yet other game projects along with it. He had actually made some awesome tutorials for platformers, and also yet for the very jump as well. That was the other thing that I decided to work on as well, was the very jump, and also yet the collision for the platformer as well, for the Y and the X, the updated version of the X and Y collision. And it was a very interesting challenge to actually do that. It was fun, but it did take some time to actually get used to it, and that is for sure. But when it came down to the last thing, and the last one was actually the hover boots. The hover boots for this particular project has actually been quite a challenge. The hover boots was interesting, and I decided to focus on the bar first. I wanted to figure out where the bar needs to be placed first. And like as always, after when the bar was placed and all sorted, I went into debugging, trying to make sure that whenever I press the button, it actually goes all the way down, and once I let go, it refills all the way back up to make sure that it does work. And after when I realized that, and looking over another tutorial, thanks to Sarah Splonding, a very helpful YouTuber indeed, she helped me make sure that that bar was counting down the seconds, but not going down, but going up, which actually was very helpful. It was very helpful, and it became very helpful to get the hovering working properly as well. But it came down to the point of making sure that whenever the player jumps, and whenever the player is still in mid-air, it decided to hold the jump button, they will activate the hover button with relatively ease, and it will actually go down per second. So I decided to give the hover boots a duration of 5 seconds to stay up in the air, to give the player an easier time to actually save themselves from precise platforming, or to, well, allocate themselves, or to give them an easier time to make sure they jump on the enemy, which that will be the next scrimmage. But I gotta say, looking at the project and looking at the list that I have done so far, I'm actually pretty happy with how far this project have came along. Project 16-bit defense has actually been quite an awesome journey so far, from the start all the way up to now. And to answer your question, what am I actually going to be doing throughout this entire time with this particular project? I'm actually going to continue working on it, and actually going to try and build a world from it. I've already actually got a tile set all sorted. I've already got enemies created. I've already got obstacles, end goals, and also yet objects that you need to collect to actually get through the end goal, and also yet switches as well. Whether you need to shoot the switch to activate the door, or to step on the switch to actually activate the door. This is what it feels like. It feels awesome to actually do it again. I have a proper restart and actually go from there. It does feel awesome. And to be honest, you'll be seeing more of me, and also yet the updates of this particular project. It has been quite an awesome journey, and an awesome restart as well. And that's what it all matters, and what it all comes down is having a proper restart and trying again, and this time doing it properly. It does feel awesome. Thank you for listening to this particular story and this particular devlog of restarting, and also yet giving myself a proper go. If you actually enjoy this vlog and you want to see the previous vlogs that I've done, I'll make sure to put it in the description, and also yet a playlist up there, so you guys can actually go have a look for it yourself, or actually up there. But if you enjoyed the devlogs, and if you want to see more, feel free to subscribe to this channel, and to see the journey of 16-bit defense, or 16 BD, and see how far and how much it will evolve along the way. But until then, this is Planetary signing off. I will see you in the next devlog. Ta-ra!